Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest issue of Comic Book Gentlemen, the podcast where we use our decades of being giant nerds to discuss the most divisive issues in the fandom. I'm your host, Greg, joined by my constant host, Dave. Dave, how's it going?
Yo, Joe.
Yo, Joe. we're getting patriotic-esque on this one. That's funny. As Dave was referencing, the topic today is licensed comics in comic books. So most people, when they think of comic books, they think Spider-Man, Superman, the ones that,
Superheroes.
Quintessential superheroes. I mean, you even have ones that aren't about superheroes, but they're like started with comics.
Yeah.
But a very common, trend is to take other mediums, other IPs, like TV shows, movies, and whatnot, and turn them into comic books. So hence the licensed comic craze, I guess you would call it, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about kind of what we think about licensed comics at the top, and then we're going to go into some recommendations of what we've read over the years that we think people should check out. So let's start at the very top. What's your history with licensed comics? Are you a big fan of them?
I think for the most part, when I went through, I was thinking, okay, well, what comics? I know initially when we first started discussing, I was like, well, geez, I'm not very familiar with this because I don't know any. And then as I kind of sat there and thought about it a little more, I was like, wait a minute, like every toy line that I ever played with had a comic book.
Yeah.
But of course I started with the Spider-Mans and the Supermans, like the superhero. Mm-hmm. And then it's funny how I just didn't even realize that I had read these other comics that didn't start as comics.
Yeah. I think it was very much a 80s and 90s thing of like, hey, if you come up with a new IP, you got to make a comic book.
You got to do all the things.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to have a cartoon.
Yeah.
You got to have a toy line.
Cereal box,
the whole thing.
Yeah, it's very funny. I definitely feel like in the early 2000s, 2010s, it definitely slowed down a lot. You don't see as many tie-in comics, and then I feel like it's picked up again over the last 5-10 years. Obviously, because comics in general kind of had a huge boom again in pop culture. But it's funny how things have changed over the years with licensed comics. But yeah, when you go into one, what are you looking forward to when you pick up a licensed comic?
I think it's just I guess when I was reading them way back in the day, it was a continuation of like whatever it was that you were following that particular IP for anyways. Like for instance, if I were to use like G.I. Joe, I played with the toys when I was little, watched the cartoons, but eventually you get to the cartoons and they're kind of like, okay, they're cartoony, nobody ever shoots anybody.
Yeah.
Right? They're very repetitive. But I found the comics kind of, the comics in the G.I. Joe stance kind of continued it on or expanded on it and got a lot more grittier and more adult, even though you're only reading them at like 14 or 15.
Yeah.
You're like, I can't watch the cartoon anymore. I've got to do something more mature, like read the comic. And it's just an expansion of that. It's just the stories that were told. Like I still have some very vivid memories of reading some of the comics for G.I. Joe that just expanded and made me big fans of particular characters that maybe before I was like, I don't particularly want that toy. Now I want that toy.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he did this in this comic and it was amazing.
You got marketed.
I got marketed big time.
Yeah, I think it's the same for me, where it's like part of it is let's expand on the story. Like what are the parts that we're missing in between episodes or between movies, if that's the case, right? I think the other part for me is like there's some things you just can't do in a movie or a TV show that you can do in comic book. And I think I remember reading an interview from a creator, and like they were asking like, why did you want to do this in comic book form? And he said it's because you don't have those production costs. You don't have to have a whole room of people to make a graphic, something like you just need a good writer, you need a good author, and then you can go bananas. Like you can do some crazy stuff that you would never be able to do on a TV set or a movie set, right?
Yeah.
And you can just go absolutely chaos mode, and like the combination of a visual medium and a written medium works well together. And again, it's a great opportunity to expand the lore, expand all that stuff, right?
And for some reason in the comics, like when you had a toy line, say He-Man or G.I. Joe, Transformers, whatever it was, the cartoon, you could get it, like it could represent that to a good degree. Obviously, that's where we all got sucked into buying the toys. But it seemed like especially back then, I would say like 80s, definitely, you could get away with a little more in a comic.
Yeah.
So it could be a little more violent. It could be a little more gritty than you would see Saturday morning on the cartoons.
Yeah.
So I think that was the kind of the evolution, was like you buy the toy maybe because you saw the cartoon, or maybe you watched the cartoon so you bought the toy, but then eventually it's like you spilled over into the comic because as you were getting older, you were looking for something a little more. And I think that's how I evolved into a lot of those comics that came out during that time.
No, that's a really good point. I'm just looking at my list right now, and a lot of them, the reason I like them is because they elevated it to the next level of, from a kid's thing, like, oh, let's expand on it a little bit more, mature it a little bit more. So it's funny that cartoons are so much, maybe it's because, like, if it's a TV or movie, it's more public facing, so they have to be more generalized, whereas a comic book, they're like, okay, these comic book nerds will read more intense stuff. They're willing to select things for themselves, right? Which is funny. But yeah, it's a really good point. I didn't even think about the fact that it's a lot to do with maturity, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because, like, eventually you mature out of that. I still remember my dad saying to me one Christmas, like, you know, or mumbling to my mom, like, you know, when is he gonna like mature out of this, you know, this stuff, you know, like, you know, because I was 14, I should want a hand axe or something, you know, like it's something that you kind of started to phase out. But it's funny how, like, now, especially with comics being so big and the industry being so much more readily accepted in society, period, how many of those things are starting to come back now. Like, how many of those older toy IP kind of things have I gone back and read, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or G.I. Joe, or, you know, these things that I haven't touched in decades. I'm suddenly now getting back into.
Yeah, and again, a comic book is a great format to get back into certain things too, right? Because it's, you get the visual, you get the story, and then sometimes crazy stuff happens that you would never see anywhere else.
And it's been so long for a lot of it that if you're a new person coming in and you just were wandering through, say, the comic book store, you saw the cover and you were like, oh, that's awesome, that looks cool, I'm going to pick it up. They're starting from the beginning, so it's like you're not missing anything.
Yeah, and then another great point is the fact that, like, licensing anything is a great way to expand the fandom, right? Because you have some people who never watch the show or never watch the movie, but then if they're a big comic book fan and they're at a comic book store, they may, not that comic book stores really sell comic books anymore, but, you know, they may see, like, oh, I really like this IP from the movies, let me try out a comic book format, and it may be a great way as, like, a starting point to get people into comic books and stuff like that, or vice versa. You know, there's some people who probably discovered certain IPs because they read the comic book and they're like, oh, I didn't realize this was a whole TV show that has a bunch of seasons, let me go check it out as well, right?
Well, I think that you know, it's there's a bundle of things that kind of fit within that, you know, nerd geek genre of, like, okay, if you had the cartoon and you had a toy, you got a comic book, and eventually it became, oh, now you got a video game. You know, if you were lucky enough, like Transformers, to have a movie that I saw children crying and leaving in the first 10, 15 minutes because of the over-the-top violence of some of the Autobots dying.
You mean Shia LaBeouf? No, you mean the animated movie.
The animated movie. It was just, it's just like, it's these IPs managed to nail each one. Because, I mean, I can think of video games that I very much enjoyed with those IPs. I can think of the cartoons when I was kids. I can think of the toys, obviously, that I played with. And I enjoy the comic books. And if you can, like, nail all of those. The one that I never get is they get those four and then they go, why don't we write a novel? and I've never read one, but I've seen them all the time, like Batman, the novel. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know.
I've read a couple of them. It's hit and miss. It's hit and miss, you know. Which brings me to another point is, like, we're going to get into some of our favorite licensed comics, but there's also a lot of bad ones. Oh. I think the worst part for me is when you go to a licensed comic and you're excited, like, oh yeah, I love, you know, the Terminator or Predator or something like that, and I'm so cool. I'm so excited to see what they do with it, and then it's just a nothing comic of, like, nothing happens, and, like, it's just boring, or, like, it's just a retelling of the movie or something like that, and you're just like, what was the point, man? Like, you probably paid extra for this license, and, like, you didn't even do anything cool with it.
Yeah, it's, I mean, like everything, it's hit and miss, and you know, it usually follows, oh, that worked really well. Yeah. So let's just go buy 5 more IPs that we can just slap into a thing, and then those usually, you know, that usually, again, when it's not well thought out and it's not well designed. Yeah.
If you're doing it just for the sake of a money grab, probably not a good reason to do it, right?
Like DC Universe or Marvel Universe versus Godzilla.
Hey, apparently those were good. What are you talking about? No? Okay, never mind then. I haven't read them, so I can't say anything. Yeah, my bad. But yeah, there's definitely some out there where it's like you're scratching your head going, okay, who made this decision? Yeah. And then there's others out there that are really good, which we're going to get into. So, so licensed comics, they're pretty fun. And yeah, here's some of our recommendations. Do you want to go first, Dave? Or you want me to
Sure,
go first?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
One that actually you recommended to me, I have to put at the top because I'm just chomping at the bit to get to the next graphic novel.
Yeah.
Is the new Transformers through the Energon.
Yes,
That's
Energon
my
Universe.
top one. I was so surprised. Like I read through it and I was like, yeah, this is kind of a nostalgic trip. And then I was like, oh, it's kind of different. Okay, the story's different. There's some different stuff happening than what happened in the cartoons or even in the old comics. And then it just like got crazy.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. The writing's great. The art just seems to fit the Transformers genre.
Yeah.
It's a really fun ride, and I'm already through number 3. I've been chomping on the bit. I had to actually look back at number 3 and go, did I read this? And then I flipped through it and I was like, oh yeah, I read this.
Yeah.
But now I'm just waiting for that number 4 to come out. Recommend it very highly.
Yeah, the Energon universe you're referring
Yes.
to that came out. It was Daniel Warren Johnson and a couple other people.
Yeah, Johnson's just killing it.
He's
with that
great.
comic.
He's great. Yeah, I 100% agree. And we were kind of talking earlier about, like when you take an IP and then kind of mature it up a little bit.
Yeah.
This one is definitely way more reminiscent of like the 80s animated movie of like, man, people die in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
In this book. Like especially the Transformers. Like they get ripped apart and like
I might get slammed for this. My favorite Transformer all time was Starscream. and people would be like, why Starscream? Like in this, like oh my god, spoilers. I mean, when he just turns around and starts squishing humans, I'm just like, oh my god, how could you make him even better than what I remember?
Yeah.
It's just such a great comic.
I highly recommend as well. And the funny thing is, I knew this would be on your list, so I was like, okay, I want to get a Transformers in there as well. What's interesting is actually Transformers has a very long history of comic book, which is hilarious to me. Again, we were talking about 80s cartoon. You got to have the comic book, you got to have the toys, you got to have it. That was very much Transformers. So it has like decades worth of like storylines and crazy things. So like for some reason you think something that needs to be so much animated of like they actually transform, you think it wouldn't translate well to like stable art, but it actually translates really well, which is hilarious. And one that I don't know if you've ever read this, it was one of my favorites of all time. It's called All Hail Megatron. Have you ever heard of this one? No. So I highly recommend if you like the Energon universe, All Hail Megatron is very good. It's probably not as graphic when it comes to like the robots getting destroyed and stuff like that, but the concept of it is finally Megatron won. So it's like Megatron finally wins. He basically takes over the planet.
So like
what if is essentially, but like it kind of, if at the time it fit into their continuity. I think it was Dark Horse doing it at the time, but it was just this crazy comic book of like Megatron won. The Autobots are like underground because like those Decepticons everywhere. It actually is really funny. It the third Michael Bay movie, Dark Side of the Moon, takes a lot of inspiration from this, and I would argue everything great about that movie, and it
came from the comic.
It came from the comic of All Hail Megatron. It was really good. Like I remember reading at the time going like, wow, this is one of the coolest Transformers story I've ever seen, right? So if you really like the Energon universe, I highly recommend All Hail Megatron. It's a really great read, and I didn't write down the author, but like it was just a really good time, and I highly recommend it. And the artwork was good too. So again, Transformers. I knew it was going to be on the floors. For some reason, really good at comic books for whatever reason.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's funny how like it's bounced around a lot.
Yeah.
Like it's been Marvel. I think it's been Dark Horse, possibly at one point.
Right now it's Image.
With Image right now. Like it just like it's like everybody's tried their hand at the IP. Like Marvel had it at its like cartoon toy height.
Yep.
Milked the crap out of it for what they could, and then it's kind of moved around. And it's kind of been in the background, kind of flittering around, and then all of a sudden Image got a hold of it and just killing it.
Oh yeah, and like the weird part is they also mixed it with G.I. Joe, which is like, who decided that? Like, that's super random, but somehow it's working, right? So there you go. But yeah, what's another recommendation you have for you?
My other recommendation is actually Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, really? Yeah.
By Jim Zub, who's done a lot of Dungeons and Dragons stuff, and now he's writing purely 100%. He's doing just Conan the Barbarian. I'm going to say his name wrong. Delgado. He's the one that's doing the primary on the art, and it looks the way it's like a more detailed version of what you used to see in the old Conan magazines. It's unbelievable. Like the similarity is crazy. I was shocked. Like I picked up the first one. I was like, I remember reading these back in the day, kind of on the side. they're so much better. Like the story is so much better. The art's great. It's very Conan, so it's very, adult, material focused, but I've just really, really, really enjoyed it. And then I actually had a chance to bump into Zub while I was down at one of the Comic Cons.
Wow.
And he had his little display there, and he's like, "What do you want?" And I was like, "All of them." So I bought all five. I think it was four or five they had out at the time. Yeah. Signed them all. Got a poster. Talked to him for, oh God, probably 15, 20 minutes. Just about like how they managed to get the licensing, the fact that they're the only ones doing it now. Like there's no, Marvel, DC, some of these guys kind of trying to steer it in a way that fits what they do. This is just pure Conan. Like the way that Howard would have written it.
Wow.
And I absolutely love it. It's really well done.
I thought it was Marvel though, because wasn't there a time where Marvel got the rights to the Conan and they were trying to integrate them into the Marvel?
Was. Okay, yeah. It originally started out as Marvel. They used to have they had the Conan comic, then it was like the Conan the King. Savage Conan was they went to this magazine format where it was like it wasn't just a comic, there was also magazine formats.
Okay.
And a lot of it was in black and white.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't colored. So I remember seeing those back then. It wasn't something I gravitated towards. But then when I got back into it through the newer version, I just think the writing, the combination of the story, the art is just fantastic. Even the artist they bring in is like, okay, we got to give this guy a break. Let's bring in somebody else. Braithwaite's came in and just killed it as well.
That's awesome.
It's really good.
Yeah, it's funny. My dad is randomly a huge Conan the Barbarian fan, and he always tells me all the time, like, you gotta try it out. But whenever I've Googled like where to start, I have no idea. Like, it's been going on for how many years? Yeah,
that's what I loved about these. Is like it's been a while. Like, I mean, obviously, I probably overwatched the first movie as a
with Arnie.
young teen with Arnie. Which did not do well in the box office and was more of a cult classic. And that was about it. Outside of I've never read any of Howard's books regarding Conan. I've read sparingly some comics from back in the day, so it's like I just had a loose idea of what Conan was about. And then just through the video game and whatnot, I've just kind of gotten more into it. And then I was like, oh, there's this new comic out. Oh, let me try that out. And I was pleasantly surprised. Really good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, like I said,
which surprisingly didn't come from a toy or a cartoon.
No,
it came from a book.
Yeah. Wild. Like I said, I really want to try to get into Conan, so maybe that's a great place to start and get into that, right? Because Conan's one of the, when it comes to we're big D&D fans and stuff like that. It's a quintessential fantasy book and stuff like that, right? So. One for me that I'm going to mention, it's very interesting. This one's an interesting case because a lot of other, licensed comics, it's usually like a one shot or it's like a sub story that doesn't really matter to the story. But this was a scenario where the show got canceled, but they found a way to continue the story through comic book format, which is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I will say I haven't read anything past season 8, so I don't know how crazy it gets. I've heard it's reset 6 times at this point or anything like that. Yeah. But when season 8 first came out in 2007, it was the direct sequel to season 7. And season 7 kind of not a full cliffhanger, but apparently it was supposed to keep going, and then obviously there was issues with I think it was Fox at the time, and they had a big debate or something like that. So when as a Buffy fan later in life, the fact that when I learned that there was a season 8 graphic novel, I was like, I gotta check this out. So I highly recommend it. The reason why it's so good, and this is what I was alluding to earlier, is that they said there were certain things we wanted to do on the TV show that we never had the budget to try out.
Yeah.
So when they got to comic book format, they were willing to do some crazy shit. At one point, her sister Dawn is a giant. And and she's a giant for a solid 2 or 3 graphic novels or something like that. And it's that would have been insane to see on TV screen.
Yeah.
But there's
limits.
There's limits, right? But it was hilarious to see. And then it ended up being this huge globe-trotting adventure for Buffy and all the other Slayers. And they went to different countries and they did different fights and they had crazy different wars even going on.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those things of because of the comic book format, they were able to do something they never would have been able to do on TV and expand the universe. I will admit, looking back on it as an adult, there were some really weird decisions with character relationships where you're okay, that's I don't think we needed to do that with the comic books, but it was a really fascinating case of our show got canceled. How do we continue on with the legacy? And like they were able to do like a whole, they call it season 8 because it was like the whole next chapter of this universe and IP, right? So it was really fascinating. Yeah. I know your wife's a big fan of Buffy.
She has number 8.
She has number 8?
Yeah, it was actually funny. We were in, shout out Golden Age Comics in Vancouver, downtown Vancouver. She was in there suffering through yet another one of my shopping sprees. And so she started looking at some stuff, and she actually came across that, and then she was reading it and kind of looking it up on her phone, and she's like, she's a huge Buffy fan. Yeah. And she's like, oh my God, this is like a continuation from, so she bought it right then and there.
Wow.
And that's the one and only thing that I can remember her buying for herself as far as a comic book graphic novel kind of thing.
Yeah.
But she was so excited because she was such, I mean, she's probably watched the Buffy series, I'm gonna say at least 10 times.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Like she'll just occasionally, usually once or twice a year, she'll go from episode 1 all the way through, and she'll just crash through it.
Wow.
It's crazy.
And like you said, it's a great way to get non-comic book fans into comic books, right?
Yeah. And you made a really, really good point. Like there's no budget constraint.
No.
Right, it's just whatever your artist and your writer can imagine and put on paper.
Yeah.
Right, so it's you can really get crazy.
Oh yeah, and they get crazy. Like I said, maybe too crazy in some moments, but you know, it's really good. And like the only downside of it is like if you haven't seen the first 7 seasons of Buffy, this is not a jumping on point, you know, type of thing. So, but if you're a big fan of Buffy and the TV show, it's an amazing addition and quote unquote end to the show, right? So, highly recommend if you're a Buffy fan. Yeah. What's your next recommendation?
My next one is it's kind of it encompasses a lot of different iterations, but the Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
Just because, like, the first time I got introduced to a Dungeons and Dragons comic, it was actually Forgotten Realms. It was called Forgotten Realms. It was put out by Marvel, and it was for me at that time, like, we were just getting into the Forgotten Realms, learning more about it. You know, it's like oh my God, what's over here and what's over there and what's that and this comic suddenly just took it. And I mean, I look back on it now, and I've got the graphic novels for them, and I'm like, the art was okay, the writing was but I just remember reading through them at that time and going like, this is so cool because they're exploring these areas that you didn't know about. Like they just gave you a few sentences in one of your D&D books about, and it was such, I remember just enjoying it so much. But since then, it's kind of, again, very much the same. It's bounced around between a whole bunch of different, ownerships. And finally, when D&D finally just decided, you know what, why don't we just crank out our own? I would say the ones that, Zub has done from, the very first one with Tyranny and Dragons all the way through are, they're not all mind-blowing, but, they grab the right artist, and I think the right writer to put together something to, again, and to your point, take something beyond, like, letting it lean on the person's imagination like you do when you're reading a book.
Yeah.
Oh, we can't pay for a gazillion different movies because the special effects and everything. This is just something that you can do on the cheap, but you can just go wild with it. And the fact that he brought back one of, I think, everybody's favorite D&D characters through the video games, the Boulder Gate video games in Minsk, and made him and Boo, one of the main characters. It's just such a fun ride. And there was actually another graphic novel that was put out during 4th edition, and I wish I could remember the name of it, but the art and the writing, like the story, were really well done.
That's awesome.
But again, it was just very self-contained. They didn't continue on with it. They just, here's 10 issues or 20 issues, whatever it was that they did. That's it. And I think it's a format that really works for, Dungeons and Dragons, especially if you're talking about any particular campaign world that you're working with. There's so much you can just hop around. Just do, okay, we're going to do a 5-issue run over here. We're going to do a 5-issue, and you can explore anywhere you want. And it's again, if it's well thought out and you're not trying to overkill it, and you get a good writer and a good artist, the world's your oyster. I mean, it's just going to yield a good result, and I think they've done a good job with these. Yeah,
I'm surprised that the comic book format for D&D isn't more popular, or that they're just not pumping out way more. Because like you think, like, out of all the different mediums you could do D&D in, it's like obviously the main role playing game is the number one, but you'd think something like a comic book would be like the next best thing because like you're saying, you just get a good author who has like a DM essentially who's running a campaign, doing all the like when I play D&D, I visually in my head am imagining everything and like how it could look and stuff like that. You think that would translate so well to comic book? I'm surprised there's not more of them, and there's not like you think Wizard of the Coast would be pumping these out.
It's funny because when I was talking to Zubba, like we were talking about the Conan thing, and I said, "So are you going to go out?" He's like, "Well, he was still, if I remember what he said correctly, he's still contracted with them." And I was like, "Well, is there going to be some more coming out?" And he's like, "Yeah." Like it was kind of like I'm sure if somebody came to him and said like, "Hey, we're going to do this," he'd probably do it.
Yeah.
But again, it's like I don't know what it is with some of these IPs where they're just like they just suddenly stop doing shit.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make any sense because there is a market for it and there are people that like it, but
yeah,
you know,
I guess
it's their $1 billion IP. They're allowed to do what they want.
I mean, to be fair, we could have a whole separate podcast about everything Wizard of the Coast is doing to D&D to mess it up, right? Yeah. So that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, I'd love to see more of that. Going on to my next one. This is actually probably my favorite when I think of licensed comics, and I'm going to do a little curveball on you. I'm going to the manga universe.
No.
For the comic books. So
the what?
Yeah. I know this newfangled technology, whatever. So this is actually based on my favorite IP of all time, which is Pokemon. I am a huge Pokemon fan. Since I was born, like one of my first memories is watching the TV show and then I got the game right after that type of thing. So like you said earlier though, the hard part is some of those IPs are made for children. So as you get older, sometimes it can be hard to stick with them. Are
they? Two of my just recently two of my adult friends we were at a function. They were kind of off to the side, and I kind of walk over and say, "Hey, what are you doing?" They got their phones out there. They were trading Pokemon.
So what I'll say is like I went through a phase, right? Like when I was really young, I loved Pokemon. When I was like a teenager, I kind of fell off a little bit. And now that I'm adult, I'm back into it, type of thing. So, but during that phase of like kind of falling out of it, I discovered the Pokemon Adventures manga. And it blew my mind because the reason it blew my mind is because it somehow managed to it's still for kids and it still has like the baseline of Pokemon, but it still manages some ways to elevate it. And I feel like part of that is just because it originally is Japanese and they always have a different threshold when it comes to maturity levels.
Yes.
But like in the Pokemon manga, Pokemon die.
Yeah.
Like that's not something they ever address in the video games. That's not something they ever address in the TV show. Maybe like once or twice in the TV show, but like they're very clear about like, no, this is a happy-go-lucky universe. But in the Pokemon manga, like people die, and it's crazy.
It's so funny you would say that with like the maturity level thing because I remember like obviously we watched a lot of cartoons when we were kids growing up. One of my favorites being the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. G.I. Joe, Transformers, that kind of stuff. But I still remember, when we first got cable, and one of the shows that for some reason was just on a channel, can't even tell you what channel it was. First thing in the morning, right before we had to go to school, was Robotech.
Okay.
Right, and it was so much like it's a cartoon or manga, but it was so much more mature than the stuff that you saw Saturday mornings or even on, your other regular shows, like even the Justice League, Spider-Man and Friends, that kind of stuff. It was so much more mature. And I remember watching it even at that age, like the same age, and I'm going like, oh, I really like this. Yeah. And I haven't quite figured out why they seem to still box in these cartoons with these kids nowadays and not realize like, no, actually they crave and actually would and be entertained by something slightly more mature than what you guys are producing, because in that same thing, people died, there were explosions, there were like relationships, there were like it was so much different than anything I had ever seen.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like if you go on, like even comics have had this too, right? Like what audience are we targeting, and what are we willing to get go through to get if we're targeting a younger audience, right? Like I remember growing up, some of my favorite cartoons of all time had a little bit of a more mature theme to it. And then you had the other ones that were just, you know, they were fun, but they never like went to that next level, right?
Yeah.
So it's, I feel like it kind of just goes through waves of like I'm sure in the 80s, there's some parent that saw Robotech and was like, never mind, I'm calling the government, and like getting this pulled off.
Dungeons and Dragons, for
yeah,
sure.
exactly. They were like,
I got to live through the Satanic Panic.
Exactly. So then you had the 90s where things like toned down a little bit, but then you had the anime invasion of Pokemon, and then all the parents freaked out again, like, oh, the worship. There's so many clips from the 90s of churches going like, Pokemon's the devil, and like stuff like that, which is so funny. But yeah, going back to the Pokemon Adventures manga, like I said, like it's really good elevation of the story. It explores the universe in different ways. Like it wasn't just the basic video game story that they do every single time. They had different ways of like being a Pokemon trainer and stuff like that explored. They then expanded the lore when it come to like the villain teams and stuff like that, and like what they were actually doing. So if you're a big Pokemon fan or were a big Pokemon fan, I highly recommend the manga, specifically volumes 1 to 14. It covers Gen 1 and Gen 2. I haven't read as much beyond that, so I can't fully recommend that, but the first 14 volumes are really good. And like I said, they just expand on the universe. They twist it a little bit so that you're not, you know, it's familiar yet new type of thing, so you can really get into it. And like I said, people die, which is like crazy. Like in a Pokemon universe, like they usually do not talk about that. So it's crazy. But yeah, what's some other any crazy?
I would say like one of my and this is more of a nostalgic take, but it's if you go back and look at the old Marvel. And I'll put both of them together for a reason. Was the old Marvel Transformers, which I wasn't as big a fan of, but even still going through and flipping through some of them was just kind of like, oh, you know. The G.I. Joe one, I was very. I've got the omnibus, which I'm very much looking forward to reading through again, because I've read through them way back when, and I'd like to read through them again. And I still remember this vivid comic. It was just on the cover. It was just Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow going at it. Yeah. Right. But then you get into the comic, and the entire comic, it's a silent comic. There's not any writing.
Really?
It's just art, and it's just them fighting the entire comic. And it was. I remember myself and a friend of mine were just like, this is like amazing. Like there's no writing, there's nothing being said. They're just going at it the entire time. But it was these two entities that were going, and then it's like what Energon is now is some genius said, what if we did a 4-part issue where we put Transformers and G.I. Joe in the same comic? And it was 4 issues. It was probably ridiculously bad when I look at it now, but back in the day it was just like, oh my god, you just took 2 of my favorite toys and smashed them together. And it was amazing. But if you're in my age group, if you want a nice nostalgic romp through time, going back and looking at those series, it's just there are some hidden gems in there that really, really stick out as like that's a really good comic.
Next one for me that I'll mention is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 2015. So Power Rangers is interesting because it's obviously gone through ups and downs throughout its, I guess it's 30-year history or something like that, even longer than that. I remember when I was a kid, loved Power Rangers. It was amazing, and then obviously I fell off as I got older. But in 2015, Boom Studio took it over, and this was one of those situations where instead of like continuing the story or something like that, they went back to the beginning and retold it with a modern twist, as well as like a little bit more maturity level and stuff like that. And then as the comic went on, they started expanding the universe type of thing. So I've been trying my best to collect them all. It's very hard to, now that I'm always, it's 10 years ago at this point, so it's hard to find some of them. But yeah, it was a great read if you're a Power Ranger fan. I'd be very curious, like somebody who isn't a Power Ranger fan, what they would think about it. Cause like, I don't know, I'd just be curious if people could get into it. But I think especially, there's a really now famous storyline that they did in this comic called Shattered Grid, where they're following the main Power Rangers, but then Shattered Grid introduced alternate reality in which the Power Rangers lose and they're evil, essentially, specifically the Green Ranger. And so that delves into like what happens then, and then it brings in all the other alternate realities of Power Rangers and all the other, like, because you have the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but then you have like Wild Force and you have Dino Thunder and you have all these things, and it brought them all into this like crazy multiversal endgame war against each other, and then it kind of just goes crazy from there, which is awesome. So another recommend for me, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Again, I don't know if people who aren't fans of Power Rangers would get into it, but I really enjoyed it as a fan of Power Rangers. So. Yeah.
I would have to go back to the Energon universe.
Yes.
I just finished reading the first graphic novel for the rebooted G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Joshua Williams, I believe,
Yeah.
is the one that's writing. I was like generally with a graphic novel, I'll read them like they're 5 comics, 6 comics. I'll read a comic, put my bookmark in, take a break. I only put my bookmark in once.
Really?
And it was a combination of, I think he captured a lot of stuff that I saw from the old comics when the action was going on. Nobody's talking. It's just art.
Yep.
It's just the fighting. It's just, fist punching and guns shooting, and it's just that. So it was obviously easy to flip through as you're just enjoying the art. But there was something, I can't put my finger on it. It's only one graphic novel, but I tore through it. And I'm like, I'm still sitting on that, like I must have liked it because I went through it so quickly. But what did I like about it? I'm not sure yet. I don't know what it is. So I've got the second one ordered up because I just want to keep exploring this to find out why. Because I typically, if I'm having a time struggling through something, it'll take me a while. This was like I think a combination of it was good, and the fact that like when the action's taking place, it's not like you see in a lot of comics now where it's just like a lot of dialogue. Like who the hell has time to talk that much when you're fighting?
I know.
So it was just a combination of that. It was like when the action was taking place, it was just the focus was on the action, and then when it was time to tell the story, it was written well enough that it kept me intrigued and interested moving forward. So I'm curious. I'm kind of like it's a half recommendation.
Yeah.
I know something's there.
Yeah.
I just don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of potential, right? A lot of potential. Hopefully they land the plane. I think you're right. We're kind of like mentioning kind of our top recommendations, and now we're kind of getting to like these were good, but maybe not like the best of them all. One that I'll mention is again, speaking of a TV show that they continued on in comic book format, is Avatar: The Last Airbender. Avatar: The Last Airbender considered one of the best TV shows of all time. Again, it's a kids show that has a level of maturity to it.
Yeah.
I was very excited to read the comic books because I was like, oh, there's so much they could do for in between Aang's time and then into Korra's time. So basically like not season one, but like series 1 versus series 2, there's a huge time gap in between. So that's what these comic books do, is they kind of explore that time gap of like what actually was going on. I did enjoy it. The one thing I'll say to it is like it leans more towards kids level than opposed to like teenager mature level, which I'm a little bit disappointed in because that was the best part about the show, was it had a really good balance of like it's kiddie fun but with a darker tone to it. Whereas the comic book I feel like leaned a little too much into the kiddie fun part of it, which I'm like I wish it could have been a little bit of that. But other than that, it's one of those things, they have a bunch of them, but like some of them are really good, and then other ones are kind of like, okay, that I don't think you needed to tell that story. So kind of similar to what you're saying about the D&D one, where it's like some of them are really good, you should check that out, and other ones are like it's just okay, type of thing. So that's what I'll do for a quick recommendation of Avatar. What's another quick recommendation for you?
I would say I really enjoyed the Marvel, or more specifically Avengers versus Alien.
Okay, yeah.
Just because it was like let's just forget about all continuing. It's just one of those things. Like let's just pretend this happened.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen? It was written by Hickman. The art was great by Rebec.
Ribic, yeah.
Ribic. And of course, spoilers. Of course, Sinister's at the end of this. If anything is to do with genetic, weapons, he's going to be in on it. But it was just fun because I was like, I remember reading through it and I'm like, okay, well, who's going? Oh shit, that person bit it already.
Yeah.
Oh, these people are already dead.
Some people get brutally murdered in this book.
I know. It was great. So that one, and then if you want something like lacking story, and it's just you're just there for the fighting, is Wolverine versus Predator.
Yeah.
It's just again, the fighting is all you're there for. You're just there to see Wolverine, who, if you're reading Wolverine comics and Wolverine's your favorite character, you're not there for his sad backstory. You're there for the fact that he's a badass and he kills people, and then he's up against Predator. So I mean, those kinds of things can be done really well. I think the Godzilla thing was a whole other story, but when they do those mixes, they can do a good job, and I think those are two examples of, if you're going into it looking for a specific, like I just want to see two entities going at it you know, great. Wolverine, Predator's perfect for it. If you just want to see like a you know, who's like it's an episode of Survivor. Who survived the alien invasion? That's what it was. And nobody I really liked survived.
No.
I was so ticked. I was just like, well, how are all the people I follow in comics that are like my favorites dead?
They got murked hard, dude. You lent Avengers versus Aliens to me. And it was funny because, like, I enjoyed it as well. It's very balls to the walls. Everybody's dying and everything. The one thing I don't understand is why did he age everybody up like 20 years?
I don't know.
I guess he was just trying to do, like, it took that long for the aliens to kind of take over the planet type of thing. But that was the one weird part. I was like, it's almost like Old Man Logan territory going on
it's
here.
Old Man everybody.
Old Man everybody. Like, even Miles was like 40 with a mortgage. It was like, okay, what's going on?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. You fucking dead. Last quick one I'll mention. Again, this one's very niche to certain people. So have you ever heard of the book series Red Rising?
No.
Okay, this is probably the best book series I've ever read in my life. It almost ruined books for me because I read Red Rising and it was so good that I have a hard time reading other books. And so the writer Pierce Brown then came out with a comic book series called Sons of Ares, and it's a prequel series to the novels where it delves into like there's an organization called the Sons of Ares, so it goes into like what's the creation of that and like delving into the history of before the books type of thing. So it's a prequel level. It's really good. The artwork's amazing. The issue is you have to be a Red Rising fan to really get into it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just like, I have no idea because they don't explain anything. They're like they assume you read the books, right? But if you're a big Red Rising fan and you want to just delve more into this universe, go check out Sons of Ares. It's a great time for that. But and if you haven't read Red Rising, go read Red Rising. Again, ruined my life because of how good it was. That's how good it was. But yeah, that's all I have for Licensed Comics. Do you have any last ones you want to mention?
I would say I'm just about finished. Void Rivals. The first one.
Void Rivals? What's Void Rivals?
It's in the Energon universe.
Okay.
Because apparently I just like the Energon
universe.
You're
the biggest stan. What the heck?
So it's written by Kirkman.
Oh, really? Robert Kirkman?
And how do you explain it? So in the first couple issues, they run into Jetfire.
Oh, really?
And revive him, and then he flies off and leaves them. But it's like these two warring cultures of, we'll call them humanoids, that are going at each other. But it's like these two got crashed on to a planet. They have to rely on each other to survive. They hate, like, they've been brought up to basically hate each other. And then it's like, so far, it's as they're moving along, they just keep bumping into, so far, things out of Transformers. So like various alien species from Transformers and everything else. And I don't know what it is because I'm reading it and I'm like, it's like, if somebody were to ask me, and again, it's like one of these partial recommendations, we say like, well, what's it about? I go, I don't know. I don't know yet.
Yeah.
And then they go, well, why are you reading it? I was like, I don't know. All I know is I'm like, well, that was it, but I kind of want to read some more. So I've only just gotten partially through the first one. It was one that actually came up. I saw a lot of people recommending it and saying like, oh, I love it. I imagine as Kirkman does, he does a really good job about building relationships and building individual characters where you really start to care about them, and then he kills them. But I'm thinking, there's got to be something more here. I'm just not sure what it is yet. But yeah, it's in the Energon universe. It takes place in space, and they do come across, so far, various elements that you've seen in Transformers.
That's awesome.
So it's not Transformers. It's not G.I. Joe. It's like its own thing.
Interesting.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
I can't tell you why.
Just check it out.
Just check it out for yourself.
Yeah. That's awesome. No, I mean, hey, if there's any takeaway from this episode, is some reason Transformers is really great complex.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like you had mentioned, like you grew up with Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Right. So I was having this conversation with my wife the other day about fantasy worlds. Like, what's your favorite fantasy? Like, when you're thinking of like nostalgic fantasy worlds, so like I grew up, I was like, oh my god, the Forgotten Realms, because it just right at that perfect moment in my life. it was like D&D, and it was just this like mysterious place, and that's the thing for me. Friends of ours are like huge fans of Wheel of Time, and and I said, like, as you're moving forward, and I'm recommending stuff, or we're playing D&D, or we're doing these things, and I go, well, it's the Forgotten Realms, and I'm shaking with excitement, and I give it to you, and you go, oh, that's nice. Like, you're never gonna get that same vibe that I had, and I think that's one of the things, like, you can quite easily with some of the stuff, if you were a fan of the toy or the cartoon or whatever, and you're like, I don't know if I like. Trust me, that nostalgia will kick in, and you'll like whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Because it's like you just get transported back to that time, that point in your life where you were just very willing to accept that thing as the best version of whatever it is that you're a fan of. Like, I'm sure there's better fantasy realms than Forgotten Realms. I'm sure there are people that think their superhero is better than Spider-Man. But at that time in your life, that's what you picked up.
Yeah.
My brothers, I can never understand. I'm always like, G.I. Joe Transformers, and I'm just like, yeah, they're okay. And because they're just younger, and I'll be like, well, what are you talking about? Well, man, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was the bomb.
Yeah.
Because that's what they grew up with.
Interesting.
So it's like I think that if you're looking for something in these modes of something outside of comics that became a comic, certainly look for something that maybe you enjoyed when you were a kid, because your chances are you're probably going to enjoy it as an adult, reading through some of this.
Bring it back, man. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Let your geek flag fly. Right?
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's
sure.
amazing. But yeah, I think those are a bunch of great recommendations for licensed comics. Any other final thoughts, or are you good with what we got?
No, it's funny how like I look at it and I go, like, some of the IPs that seem to be outside of comics that come into comics seem to struggle, and I'm not sure why. But especially of late, well, not of late, I would say the last 20 years at least, you've seen a lot of graphic novels converted into movies that are huge hits, or into TV series that are huge hits. And I think that some of these people should really take a hard look at, like, we've got this great IP as a TV show or a movie. What if we made it a comic? Like, go the other direction, because there's, like, especially right now with the manga explosion, anime has obviously always been there, but with that attention on it, still right now to this day, like, there's an opportunity for you to take that thing that cost you $110 million to make and make it for damn near free comparatively, and really just go crazy with it. And if there's a fan base out,
it's easy money.
They'll run for it.
Exactly, right? No, it's a great examples of what we had. If you guys have any recommendations, make sure to let us know in the comments. We'll definitely check those out. Wherever you found us, make sure to follow us, because next episode, speaking of our favorites, is our favorites of 2025.
None of the comics we mentioned right now will show up in that list.
You don't think so?
No, they will for sure.
Oh, they will. Sorry, I thought you said they weren't.
That's what I did say.
Okay.
I said they won't show up.
Okay.
We'll talk about completely different stuff.
Yeah. No way we like those, right? But my favorite episode every year is when we do our favorites. I'm very curious to see how 2025 went, because it was a weird year for comic books. So we'll see how it goes. But make sure to follow us wherever you find us, and we'll see you next time.